Hello there, lovers of cardboard and everything plastic. Today I'm going to be talking about the app-enabled dexterity game Beasts of Balance from Sensible Object. Alright, so what is this weird game with these weird shaped creatures and weird noodles that you have to stack onto this plinth thing? Essentially, yes, it is a dexterity game. And essentially, really, you are just trying to build a really tall tower of animals and keep them balanced and as high as you can. But I would be remiss if I didn't talk about the other game that basically comes with that, and that's the app itself. The app is really where the brunt of the game of Beasts of Balance takes place. Every time you place an animal onto the plinth, you're going to scan it first, which then registers in the app, and then when you place your object onto the plinth, you'll see it in the app. Now at first it's going to look that the app is really just a fun, colorful way to present this stacking game, but you'll notice there's a lot more nuance to the game, and that the game itself in the app is again all about balance. It's a different kind of balance though. While the physical aspect of the game, you're trying to balance these weird shapes and make sure that everything stays stable, in the app you're doing somewhat the same thing but in a different way. Every animal will appear with life points. If one animal has a higher life point than any other animal, all the other animals start to get jealous and basically lose life points. Lose too many and populations go extinct. If you somehow find a way to manage that everybody has the same point value, you'll lose absolutely no points. And honestly, that's a pretty good summary of the actual gameplay of this game. Now there's a little bit more to it. There's a collection aspect where you put certain objects on a plinth that'll combine certain animals or migrate them from the land to the sea, and they transform into other types of animals. All of this is collected in a bestiary inside of the app, which is kind of like a Pokedex. It's a really cool way to add a bunch of depth to this game. On its surface, really it's just a stacked dexterity game. And if it were just that, it probably wouldn't be anything all that special. Yes, you'd have a bunch of really weird shapes like this that are really hard to stack on top of other shapes, but beyond that, you wouldn't really have much else. It would just be trying to see how high you can get the tower. But with the app component, not only are you trying to get your tower as high as possible, you're trying to keep as many points as possible. And that allows the game to add some really fun components. There's the two miracles, which basically allow you to keep the points that you would normally lose, but add some sort of distracting element inside of the app that you have to pay attention to. All of this comes together to create a really fun and sort of awesome looking product. It's very colorful. The app is excellently done. Cannot complain about the colors. The sound effects are great. There's very few little bugs I've seen. The only ones I saw were really sort of in the battle mode, which is technically in beta, so they can get away with that for now. And honestly, this is one of the coolest dexterity stacking games I've ever played. The added app element and just the really awesome, bizarre shapes that you're going to be stacking on the plinth is just really fun, and it's always cool to try different things. Trying to beat your previous high score is always fun. Now that doesn't mean I think everything about this game is perfect. There are some minor quibbles I have. Mostly in that, while yes, there are two sort of games and you're trying to balance it, it's really just trying to see how many points you can get. And that's not necessarily going to be engaging forever. I feel if you are a more hardcore gamer, that this really isn't going to hold your interest for all that long. But as a family activity, or just something that comes out every once in a while, it's going to be pretty awesome, and every time you play, you're going to have a lot of fun. The other big negative really is going to be price. Now, a big thing is I have the Kickstarter edition, so I did get some of the expansions essentially for a much cheaper price than you would normally get. And honestly, at this point, because I've only really played with the expansions included, I can hardly imagine playing without them. And that makes me feel that the base game, while yes, there's a lot in there, there's just not maybe enough to make it quite as interesting. I would really miss it if I didn't have the anglerfish. That just is a really interesting shape. You can put an element inside its mouth, you can flip it upside down, you can do all sorts of weird things with it. The chameleon, which you can hang, you know, in some sort of weird fashion, or you can balance it to have a shape on top of it, but also hiding on its tail. The expansion animals just add a lot of sort of new little tips and tricks. And then of course there's the legendary creatures, which are huge, hulking monstrosities essentially that add a lot of points to the game. And so they're sort of unfair and make the co-op a little unbalanced, but they're still kind of cool to have. Lastly, there is one other aspect to this game, and there's the new battle mode that's pretty recent and just been sort of added. Battle mode actually ends up making the variety of the game a lot better, because essentially it flips the game on its head. In it, you'll take control of one of the three elements, ground, sky, or water, and you'll duke it out with up to 2 different opponents. The best part about this is that it changes the stacking element. The ab component doesn't really change all that much. Yes, there's some cool attack animations that you can kind of see and little things like that, but inside the ab is really interesting is what goes on the plinth this time. And that's because instead of the co-op mode where you're trying to get the tower as high as possible, this one you can be a little bit more mean and sort of put things where you normally wouldn't. Just enough that maybe the animal balances for you, but the next opponent's going to have a really hard time fitting something onto the plinth. Because you can get them to knock down the entire tower, they automatically lose. And of course the best part of that is when it backfires in your face completely, and then you have to stack on top of your crazy tilted tower that you don't think is going to stand very well. There's one final expansion that has sort of been added, and that's the battle cards. They of course go with the battle mode, and they add sort of a battle card system to it. Now the cards allow you to basically negate the powers of some of these elements that you'll put onto the plinth, and just little tweaks and tricks like that. And that essentially does it for this review. I'm just going to say that Beasts of Balance is a really cool, unique stacking game. You will have played nothing really exactly like it. It does have elements of games you've played before, but adds some new twists with its electronic components. Hi there, I'm assuming if you got through the video, you must have really liked it. And if you did, please remember to like the video itself, leave a comment, and hit that big red subscribe button for more content. If you'd like to check out some of my older content, there will be a link to check out a lot of my older reviews. And also, if you're a miniature painter, you can check out some of my miniature painting tutorials. Alright, I'll see you next video. Bye.